Boom! We are WNST. Tassel Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We talk sports even when we're not on the air, Luke Jones and I. The Maryland Crab Cake Tour is back after it. It's Friday. I'm putting new dates together. It is our birthday. Luke's already a year older. Leonard Raskin's birthday is this week, and mine is over the weekend on the 14th. So we're going to chase it early on Friday. We're going to be giving away the Ravens scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery. We're going to be down at Pizza John's all afternoon. Come by. My wife's like, when are you going to be there? I'm like, I don't know, noon to 5, 1 to 4, 2 to 5. However long people want to come by and eat cake. They will not run out of ice cream, and they will not run out of pepperoni pizza. So come on down to Pizza John's. Our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions putting out the Oyster Tour, as well as our friends at Curio Wellness, who were very magnanimous as our host at Maritime Magic on Friday night. We had a nice time down there. Saw a lot of friends. A lot of local businesses, a lot of cool people out having a good time as well. And Jiffy Lube, Multicare, always powering up Lucas, getting him back and forth to now just Owings Mills. I don't know, dude. When's the next time you're going down to the warehouse? Now that we're about to talk some football here, like, is the baseball washed out other than watching Manny Machado play?
I think so. I mean, even when they acquired Corbin Burns last February, they just did a Zoom. I mean, it
And that
wasn't
was
like they're,
February.
yeah, yeah. So at this point, I would assume, I mean, Mike Elias said Brandon Hyde is back. They're not going to call a press conference, even if they make some coaching changes. So, yeah, I think it's Owings Mills. And then, of course, the stadium on Sunday as Washington will come to town, and we'll get into that later in the week. But
Mr. Rubenstein was field side with his Commanders passes on. I have a feeling Mr. Rubenstein is a sympathizer, if you know what I'm saying.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. At the same time, I mean, as you know, I'm pretty familiar with Philadelphia sports. Joshua Harris, the owner of the Sixers, owns the Commanders. I mean, Philadelphia and Washington. I mean, I saw it.
Ted Leone just told me the whole thing from Richmond to Boston is going to be one big Amtrak. He told me that when they were going to bring preseason hockey here to Baltimore. So, yeah, I mean, but this is a fun week, right? Baltimore, Washington's fun, and it's a lot less fun when you're 2-3. It's a lot less fun when they're 1-4 and they're good. But this game on Sunday is, I mean, three-quarters of the way through, it's a game of the year for action. We're going to be tearing this one down most of the week. But I love Baltimore, Washington. It doesn't happen often enough, man.
It does. It does. But I mean, what a game in Cincinnati on Sunday. We get so caught up in the emotion of the day and what's going well and what isn't going well. And there was plenty to like and there was plenty to not like whatsoever about that game from a Ravens perspective. But highest scoring Ravens Bengals game in the 20 or 30 plus year, coming up on 30 years of Ravens Bengals. I mean, that was not an AFC North like game. I think we'd all agree on that with the number of points scored, but boy, that was great. I mean, that was, instant classic is something that gets thrown out there a lot. And I'm not sure that we're necessarily going to remember it to that degree years from now, but as I wrote at BaltimorePositive.com, this very much feels like it has the potential to be a season-defining kind of outcome for both of these teams. The Ravens doing what they did, overcoming a 10-point deficit multiple times in the second half, something that Lamar Jackson detractors have doubted this offense's ability to do.
What you talking about, Luke? You talking to me?
You or anyone else? I mean,
all I can say is in the fourth quarter, they're down 10 points. There's 8 minutes left, and they have to throw the ball. And you and I have gone back and forth to saying, will this work? Will it not? And Lamar's going to run around and go in the phone booth, and it's going to be designed runs for Lamar because it's still their best play. That's still their home run. And then Derrick Henry's the home run hitter. Like, somebody around here also was really, really bullish on obtaining.
Wait a second.
Derrick
You're just
Henry.
Wait.
Don't bury the lead now.
No, I'm not. What do you mean, Barry? The lead is that Zach Taylor is a terrible coach. That's actually the lead. If I want to give you my honest, unfiltered takeaway, Ravens fans should hope that Zach Taylor continues to coach the Bengals for a long time because I don't see it with that guy. And I get it. They made it to a Super Bowl now 3 years ago, right? Okay, it was 3 years ago and they lost. I mean, to sit there and you're gifted a fumble. I mean, Lamar just dropped the snap. I mean, the snap was perfect. This wasn't like the Giants game a couple years ago where the snap goes over his head.
It hit him in the 8. I mean, it literally.
Yeah, I mean, he just missed it. I mean, you could tell. I mean, even after the game, Lamar was that ticked because he knew that they came that close to losing on what was a routine thing. But I mean, Zach Taylor, instead of putting the ball in Joe Burrow's hands and a passing game that the Ravens didn't really stop at all until Marlon Humphrey got the interception, which, to his credit, to the defense's credit, did allow the Ravens to have a chance to tie the game. But run it 3 times and settle for a 53-yard field goal. I mean, shame on you. I mean, that's gutless. I mean, it was absolutely gutless. And the Ravens, hey, they stopped the run 3 times and made them kick, and they missed it, and then Derrick Henry closed. But don't just brush past the fact that what I have been talking about was at some point in time, defenses were going to start selling out to stop Derrick Henry, and the Bengals did that until that play at the very end of the ball game. And the Ravens still went out there and scored 38 points, and they were able to make plays through the air. And Lamar Jackson had almost 350 yards and 4 touchdown passes. So, the point I'm making here, and obviously you and I sparring back and forth. I mean, it's pro wrestling like at time at this point,
Well, I don't
but
want to see Lamar coming back from 10 points down on the road. I don't want to have to see it. And when
sure,
I
but it's
see
going
it
to
and recognize,
happen.
it's hard for anybody. Hey, like, I can't beat
Right.
Lamar. I'm saying you can't come back from 10 points down unless it's his fault they're down 10 points in the fourth quarter. Then I can start to point fingers. But in the case of Lamar, they've been ahead by so much. First down, as I always say, works. And once first down works, they keep the ball, they shove it up your ass, they shorten the game. You're losing by 3 touchdowns, and the backup quarterback's out, and it's over. I've seen them do this over 5 years so many times in the regular season that it's perfect. What I haven't seen them do is what they did on Sunday.
Right. And that's my whole point about what's encouraging about seeing that. Now, at this point, are they going to see the Bengals in January? I mean, the Bengals are 1-4, and their defense can't stop anybody. Their offense is terrific. I mean, Joe Burrow since week 1 has played at a high level. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean, since Higgins came back from the hamstring, they've been really difficult to stop. I mean, they have 25 plus points scored in the last 4 weeks, and they've won one of those games because their defense can't stop anyone. So, but for the Ravens, and everything you just said about the running game and stand on schedule and all of that's all true. I've never disputed that. The point that I've made and the point that you and I have argued about was if they find themselves in this position at some point, you have to be able to do this. And look, no one, whether you're Patrick Mahomes or whatever quarterback, Tom Brady, no one wants to be down 10 points in the second half. No one wants to be in a position where they're down 2 scores and you need to be in 2-minute offense. But if you find yourself in that position, this was a great example of being encouraged and heartened that they can do it. I mean, they did it. I mean, it had been 3 years since they've been in this position where they've come back from being down 10 points in the fourth quarter. That Indianapolis Monday night game where Lamar threw for a career high for passing yards, and they were down. I think they were down 16 or something like that in that game in the second half or early in the fourth quarter. But I mean, it was that was encouraging, that part of it. Now we'll get into the defense. We'll get into whatever the heck that was at the end of the first half with John Harbaugh's game management or mismanagement. I mean, holy cow. But what they did through the air with 2 minute, and yes, Derrick Henry finished after Zach Taylor did what they did and McPherson missed the kick. But I'll also throw out there perhaps reports of Justin Tucker's demise exaggerated because, I mean, he had a pretty big kick there, 56 yards. I mean, that was not really the way you wanted to try to tie that game and give Cincinnati time to try to win it with a minute and 35 to go. But Justin Tucker drilled it and they got the
But by
sack
the
from
way, if I were going to
Madubuike.
have
But
any guests that I could reach to through Chad Steele this week, I'd book Sam Cook on and talk about how incredible over the course of time the former Wolfpack was, and the hold, because the Bengals lost the game because their punter couldn't hold the ball. Like literally, like I think the kid might have made the kick. To your point, it was insane that they didn't just come out with Burrow throwing the ball over their heads and try to end the game. Get down
no,
and
I mean, I don't know. You don't have
those
to throw
three
it over their
runs were
heads,
horrible, dude. They
right? I mean,
they were almost half-assed. They were almost like the last one was like trying to center the ball. It was
well,
like,
that's
here,
exactly what
you
it
take it,
was.
don't fumble it, fall down. Dude, you're at the 35-yard line. What are you doing?
Right. I mean, that's what was crazy to me. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you're not going to throw it over their heads per se, but do what worked throughout the day. I mean, I get it. Chase Brown, he popped a couple runs. It's not like their running game did absolutely nothing, but it certainly wasn't the reason why they were in the position they were in to win the game at that point. I mean, it had been Joe Burrow throwing for almost 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. And the fact that the Ravens couldn't tackle Jamar Chase and they couldn't cover T. Higgins and those guys were completely carving them up to just go into complete turtle mode for a 53-yarder. And I don't care how good your kicker is. And look, Evan McPherson, he's made some kicks. I mean, he for someone who hasn't been in the league a long time, he's pretty well regarded. But I don't care if you have Justin Tucker there. I don't care if you have Adam Vinatieri or name your pick of your favorite kicker of all time. You don't settle for that. I mean, that was insane to me. But that's what they did. And to their credit, and John Harbaugh did make this point, and I will at least agree with this. And we saw the Bengals do this very thing after the turnover, after Lamar drops the snap. It would have been very easy, considering where Cincinnati got the ball, for the defense to just completely let down there, right? And maybe then Chase Brown pops a 15-yarder to make it more of a chip shot. But they did bottle him up. That it was very conservative, too conservative for my taste. I think we're absolutely on the
The
same
minute he
page there.
fumbled the ball, the game was over. The Bengals have to win that game. I mean, to me, they
Sure,
moved to 99%. You get a first down. Don't kick from there. Don't give it away. You're not playing the clock, so why wouldn't you pass? I mean,
it's crazy.
give me your three best plays to get 10 yards and then three more and end the game. End the game. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but but I'll say on the flip side, then when the Bengals essentially turned the ball over when they missed the kick, and obviously the Ravens have good field position there, but they're not in field goal range just yet. The Ravens or the Cincinnati defense did what the Ravens defense did, which was let down, or what the Ravens didn't do, which was let down in that spot. Derrick Henry nearly takes it all the way, and then Justin Tucker has a chip shot. So, as I wrote, and look, I've heard a lot of coaches credited for this, but I think it was Casey Stengel was the first one to say more ball games are lost than won. The Cincinnati Bengals ultimately did a little bit more to lose that game, and the Ravens did plenty of great things, but also did some things that could have ended up losing the game. But the Bengals kind of were able to outshine them in that way. And look, the Ravens took advantage. It was a gutsy win. Certainly not a perfect performance, but there was a lot to like to come out of that one. And when you consider where these teams are now, Ravens, 3 straight wins via Pittsburgh losing on late, I guess, early Monday morning with the weather delay out in Pittsburgh for Sunday Night Football, tied for first place. So all the talk about 0-2 and where are they and what's going on here and they can't finish. I mean, they went through their fourth quarter adversity early. It was more the late second quarter and the third quarter where they really went through that, where it felt like it was spiraling. But hey, give Lamar Jackson and this offense all the credit in the world for doing what they did in the second half. I mean, they played really well out of 2 minute. I mean, that's Lamar really operated at a high level, running 2 minute for most of the second half. I mean, again, it's not what you want to do. No one wants to be down 10 points. But if you find yourself in that position, whether it's the first Sunday in October or late January, you like having an example that you can draw from to say, hey, we've been here before and we can do it. So that's where I look at this and again, feel like this could end up being a season defining kind of win, but long way to go. But at the same time, Ravens are in great shape now moving forward. Certainly have things they need to clean up, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And Cincinnati, I mean, 1-4, mathematically it's not impossible, but I really, really start to doubt now whether they're going to be able to climb out of that early season hole, because I just don't think their defense can stop anybody at the end of the day. And the numbers have really been bearing that out so far in 2024.
Here's Luke Jones. Here's Baltimore Luke. We got a big week ahead here. We're going to be doing a lot of wrap up with baseball, watching these other Phillies and Mets and Padres and who gets out of this week and where the Dodgers are and where the Yankees are and all of that stuff. And we'll be breaking down football, I'm sure, all week around here. It's our birthday week. We're going to be at Pizza John's, having some pizza, giving away some Maryland lottery tickets, hopefully some more winners. We've had a lucky batch with the Fadleys and Costas the last couple of weeks. I want to talk about Harbaugh, and I want to talk because look, we're going to talk about Tucker and the kicking game. We're definitely going to talk about the defense falling apart. We had a long conversation, but you really sneered at Harbaugh's coaching decisions, and I think there's a point where when you're down 10 points in the fourth quarter, you start to evaluate how did you get there. Now the defense hasn't been good enough, and that's the bigger picture. But we didn't, you and I have been doing radio 15 years, and I don't know that we had a whole lot of snappy manager chats about Showalter until Zach Britton sat at the end of the bench. And then we're like,
Yeah.
Buck, Buck, you touched every right button on every Darren O'Day, and now this, right? Um, Harbaugh's 17 years in. It's kind of crazy how far we can get into the 16, 17 years into this, right? And because I saw Tomlin with Tony Dungy, and Tomlin looks older than Dungy. I would let him know that. I'll just say that if I see him anytime soon. Maybe the years he's coached longer than Dungy now. I think now that's gone through it. But I start to see these tenured coaches, and dude, I've been on the radio a long time. Like, it was one thing to yell about Ted Marchibroda being senile, and at the end he kind of was, or Brian and I sparring mostly in good spirits over the course. He did become my partner, so he must not have hated me too much. But clock management, clock management, clock management. I've never seen a baseball manager fired more than Brandon Hyde on my timeline this week, which is absurd. I mean, like, absurd. I don't even know what these the baseball IQ and the football IQ of some people here in regard to this. And I'm not here to fire Harbaugh, but I am here to say, like, there are parts of the Harbaugh operation, including looking up at the home board with the red flag out, ready to throw the flag. There are parts of this operation that if Bisciotti were awake and running this like it was Aerotech in his garage and he was still hungry, putting a suit on every day instead of doing whatever he's doing, that you'd look at Harbaugh and say, are we getting the most out of what we're getting the most out of? Because I mean, it is amazing that they stole a game in Cincinnati over. I mean, literally, like, they shouldn't have won. They won. That's great, and it helps everything. But I go back and evaluate the evaluation, and fans want to fire Harbaugh every minute of every day, especially knowing how much he's lied to me personally and continues to. Um, on Wednesday when you're there and I'm not there, he's lying to me and my family and all of my listeners, all of them. So, but for me, the clock management part and what he has, and it feels like this confusion in games that, like, longer into this, you should have a guy for that, a helper for that, that there's confusion. And that's the part that confuses me, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this situation was as much confusion. I mean, we've certainly talked about that in the past with certain challenges or just with the clock, whatever. This just felt when obviously Derrick Henry gets tackled in the end zone, it's 14-9. The Ravens, after that, made Cincinnati punt. What was so odd about the end of the first half was that the Ravens defense had played well to that point, right? I mean, you look at the first half possessions, and I get it. I mean, Cincinnati scored a touchdown, but there were also 3-and-outs sprinkled in that first half when you look at the drive chart and Cincinnati's possessions through the first 25 minutes of that football game.
Yeah,
So
and if you break up first down pass because they're going to try to throw the ball, the Bengals were in tough D&Ds and made their way out of
sure.
it. I mean, they are that offense because they have that kind of quarterback and that kind of passing game where they can make a 3rd and 12 and they're not intimidated by it. 3rd and 12 is a long way for the Ravens if Lamar's not running. I mean, I think. I mean, I just think. I mean, and the Ravens don't get into those down and distances unless sack never happens. Negative yards rarely happens now with Derrick Henry, right? And penalties. Penalties have been the killer of down and distance for the Ravens because they run forward. The Bengals, a first down incompletion and a penalty, they're going to punt. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be in bad situations. You have to make them pay for 3rd and long, dude, especially when you get them into it.
Well, third and long didn't matter in the third quarter. I mean, they were converting third and long against the Ravens defense come the third quarter. But, to go back to what I was actually talking about, they had made the Bengals go 3-and-out. Then the Bengals score a touchdown on their second drive. Okay. 3-and-out, 3-and-out, one field goal, and they were out and punted in 5 plays. I mean, what about that tells you, oh my gosh, we need to go into this mode where we can't, we've got to score and we've got to be hyper aggressive and all of that. So I even could forgive the going for it on the fourth and a short one from their own 23. But what made no sense to me whatsoever, and I'm not saying I like that, let me be clear, but I can at least see, I guess, in some shape or form. But what didn't make any sense to me was snapping it right before the 2 minute warning on 3rd and 5, on the play where Lamar scrambles to set up that fourth and a short one. And then the play that made zero sense and to me is completely indefensible. Even the fourth and short one, the football analytics community will tell you, hey, if you feel like you're good in short distance, the analytics will tell you to go for 4th and 1 just about anywhere on the field. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I at least see that line of thinking in some circles. To call a timeout when Justice Hill on a 2nd and 10 runs for no gain. I mean, when the whistle blew, everyone assumed Cincinnati called the timeout there, right? So to then see that it was the Ravens who not basically, they gifted Cincinnati another timeout. And then, of course, Lamar throws incomplete, tries to throw a deep ball to Zay Flowers. I mean, what was that? And people will say, okay, well, when Burrow threw the touchdown at the end of the half, they still had a timeout in their pocket. Well, they had a timeout in their pocket there. That changes the play calling compared to if they have no timeout there, where they're probably working the sideline just to try to get a shorter field goal. So that was bad. I mean, that was awful. And I know John acknowledged and kind of stepped around it a little bit, danced around it when he was asked about it in the post game, saying he was kind of aggressive. I mean, that doesn't summarize it. That to
I say
me,
confusion was the word I used. It was a misstep because he didn't evaluate the situation for timeouts, down and distance, and the other side of the ball after the 2 minute warning,
well,
right?
well,
That
what?
is confusion. That is, I'm in the moment. Let's do something. Oh shit, I did the wrong thing. Like when he tried to call a timeout on top of the timeout, and he's yelling F into the world, into his
Yeah,
thing, because he's confused. And that goes back to Belichick confusing him in a playoff game. That goes back to him eating a timeout when Billy Cundiff's out there having a fire drill in the middle of Foxborough for a chance to go to the Super Bowl tenure. Confusion. That's what I'm saying. Confusion. There's no one there to calm him down. And look, you and I have been in a room with him. Could you or I calm John Harbaugh down once when he's in red light mode? I mean, I don't think so. He's ultra alpha, ultra, all that. Like in that moment, he needs his dad on the side, like literally somebody there calming it down for this situation because they're not managing the game well. I mean, that's confusion is I don't know, maybe that's the wrong word. You know what I mean?
I
Misevaluation, under fire in the moment, in that second, not having. He's thinking about the next play, not the clock, not the timeout. Somebody else needs to be there. That's all. And I
I
can't believe that Bisciotti, who's Mr. Management guy, watches this week after week. He didn't hate Harbaugh. He's not going to fire. They're not firing John Harbaugh. They're not firing Eric the guy. They're not firing Chad Steele. They're not firing. They don't fire anybody. I mean, Steve's out to lunch. This is it. He's not rehiring any more coaches. So I'm not here to fire Harbaugh. I'm trying to say if I were managing it, if John texts me this week like he did last week, John, bring in a Marvin Lewis. Bring in somebody who's coached. Bring in Dick Vermeil. Bring in somebody to sit next to you and say, I'm watching the timeouts. I'm watching the clock. We're going to do it this way. You're not going to be confused about red flags. Manage the game. We'll manage the clock, John. You're a play guy, John. You're in on plays and groupings, and that's where your mind is. You're a ball coach. Somebody else needs to manage the rest of the game. And that's not me being critical of John because I'm a one at a time guy. It's a tough job, even though he's being paid a lot for
it is a tough job. And what's funny is, you mentioned lots of head coaches stink at this, and that's what's kind of
it. Well,
that's
Andy
what's kind
Reid,
of
you're going to bring that up, and yeah.
Andy Reid was terrible at this stuff until Patrick Mahomes came along, and now that's deodorized him. And look, let's be clear. I mean, I'm not, he's a Hall of Fame coach. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I think for me, it's not. I mean, you can use confusion. I'm not really good. There have been times where it's looked confusing. I just feel at these moments, they get caught in between thinking about it from a game theory standpoint. Now, I understand what they were trying to do from the standpoint of it's late in the first half. Cincinnati has just made it, a few minutes earlier, they had made it a 14-9 ball game with the safety, and Cincinnati gets the ball to start the second half. So the last thing you want to try to do, and we see this in basketball when you get down to under a minute, right? You get down to 35 seconds on the game clock at the end of the quarter, and you try to get a 2-for-1, right? I mean, you try to do it so you can score, and then the other team has a 24-second. You have the 24-second shot clock. You want to try to get another possession. It's not terribly different than that. However, so I understand that part of it. I understand the idea that you're trying to, one, score, and two, try to keep the ball away from Cincinnati. But again, they got caught in between there at some point in time. And that's why I said, even though I certainly wouldn't have gone for fourth and a short one from their own 23, I can at least follow what they're doing there. But then after that, the play calling and the timeout after getting nothing on 2nd and 10 was just bizarre, because you ended up helping Cincinnati do exactly what you were trying to prevent them from doing in the first place, which was get the ball back at the end of the first half, score, and then score to start the second half when they get the kick. So it was just bizarre. I mean, that was bizarre.
They
So
don't lose a lot, right? So when they win like this, Luke, I mean, Eric's watching this. Ozzy's watching this, right? I mean, Ortiz is gone, but whoever's got Ortiz's job, they're all watching this. They all go back in. They break down tape on the plane home. They're breaking down tape. I mean, come on, you're around this. I mean, John, it's 6 in the morning. You and I are doing radio Monday morning. John's already in the office. You know what I mean? They're looking at this. They're thinking about this. I would just think 18 years into this, when this continues every other Monday, even when they win, we're sitting here saying, well, that was a bizarre. I mean, and I know they scrimmage all of this. They do this in April. It was, self scouting in this situation, given this. We're in Cincinnati, we're up, we're down, we're behind. Where are we kicking? What are our options, and how do we want to manage it? They do this all the time. And I would think they're doing that today based on yesterday's game for at least a minute, because it's all about Washington, as it should be, right? But there's got to be a minute where they look at it Monday the way you and I are looking at it on the radio and say, next time we need to do that differently. And 16 years into this, they just win a lot. And I think it sort of covers the asses for everybody, that they don't go back and reevaluate. They don't get better at it. When they win games after stupid challenges and red flags, it never gets better. And that's my criticism of, I have a lot of criticisms of John Harbaugh, honestly. He gets him ready to play. I don't think he should be fired. Like all of that crap, no matter how I feel about his integrity and his biblical verses at the end of everything, when I could screenshot it and send it over to him and say, is this how you're treating me? But I don't. But I don't want Harbaugh fired. I want it improved, especially if I'm Bishotti, especially if I'm Ozzy or Eric, who are thinking the same things you and I are thinking. And I don't know how that gets broached or approached, or even Todd Monken, who ran some programs as well, looking at it and saying, man, we got to do that differently. Somebody's got to have a hat on that to make sure we don't do that again and make that mistake. I mean, why are we calling timeout there? Who, you can't blame it on anybody else, because nobody else is allowed to call timeouts on the sidelines anymore, even though they have.
yeah, I mean, and again, it's the timeout on third down that just, because if you even look at it, and again, I'm looking at the game book right now. I mean, I haven't had a chance to rewatch the game, as you and I are talking at the moment, but they come out of the 2-minute warning. They run the tush push with Kohler. He gets the first down. Okay, great. You should have you're going to be able to run out the clock here, right? Or you're going to force Cincinnati to call their timeouts, or you're going to be really hyper aggressive there. But they get the first down, and then they didn't snap it, and they used the entire clock. So you're thinking, okay, well then they did that just to be able to run the clock out. Okay, fine. Again, that was risky, but if you had the conviction that you can run that play and the Bengals can't stop it, then great. You're going to run out the clock. But then you call timeout after Justice Hill runs for nothing on 2nd and 10. I mean, it's just, I don't understand that. You have to explain that timeout to me like I'm five. I mean, I don't get that whatsoever. The play before the
Just
2
the
minute
problem is
warning.
when you go out on Monday and say to Harbaugh, explain that to me like I'm five, or in the nicest way where you do it like Jameson and you make a whole thing and make him feel smart, and then you throw it to him. What does he say? He's got to say, we messed up. We shouldn't have done that. That was bad. And we talked about it today. And we're doing this. And next time, we're not going to do that. Like, that's what I want to hear from my leader. If I own the company, if I'm a fan of the company, if I'm a journalist, I just, to your point, it was insane. And I was with you. Like, they're slow playing the clock in case they don't score a touchdown, in case they don't get a field goal, in case they get a little aggressive, that there won't be any time on the other side for them. And they'll have to eat timeouts. And you do the math on 3 timeouts, and you're like, all right, that's a set of downs. Like, I get all of that, but I didn't get any of it. And to your point, I wonder what John's going to say 16 years into this when you're making these mistakes and all you need to do is get more help. I'm not looking to fire John. I'm looking to improve John.
Yeah, again, I can still kind of sort of follow where they're going. And even though I wouldn't have gone for the 4th and 1, I can still follow the thinking, even if I disagree with it. But to then the next 2 plays to do what you did and run time, but then call a timeout and think about it. It's 3rd and 10 from your own 25-yard line with 49 seconds to go at that point. What are you really trying to accomplish there? And
You're trying to
I
get into
guess
the locker room.
I mean, Lamar throws deep there, so I don't know. Maybe you're hoping for a flag. I don't know, but that was just so odd to me at that point in time, where you know, but because again, the whistle blows and you're saying, okay, Cincinnati's calling a timeout here. They're trying to get the ball back. All of that being said, Jordan Stout punted 67 yards. Cincinnati got the ball their own 21 with 34 seconds to go. You can't let them score a touchdown there either. So, I mean, just talk about an utter breakdown, coaching wise and their defense. And then obviously the defense didn't stop anyone until Marlon Humphrey's interception very late in the 4th quarter. So, just that's why I said this game had a little bit of everything, right? I mean, things to like, things not to like, some bizarre things, some crazy things, some lucky things. I mean,
They
it
lost the
was a
game three
really
times over. They were down 10 points twice in the 4th quarter and won the game. So, I mean, it smells great. I mean, it does. And
sure.
it's a hell of a win. I mean, really, like,
Oh, absolutely. Let's
really
be
a
clear
hell of a
about that.
win.
Right. And let's be clear about that. For all the flaws and you know, whether it's Harbaugh at the end of the first half, whether we're talking about the defense not being able to stop anyone, you know, I think there was a perception that with the way that this defense played against Buffalo last Sunday night, that okay, they're fixed. Clearly it's not fixed. And in fairness, I'll say they're going to face very few offenses moving forward that have the firepower that the Bengals do with not just Joe Burrow at quarterback, but 2 wide receivers that are, you know, in Chase's case, one of the very best in the league, and in T Higgins' case, a very Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver at the very least. So, you know, they have 1 and 1A, which very few teams have that. So I'll say that much. But yeah, this pass defense, I think they're 31st in the league now. You know, after 5 games, after they had improved against Buffalo, and I think you know they're 25th, 26th, 27th, somewhere like that in points allowed. I mean, I hear it that they're stopping the run, but if you're going to ask me which do I prefer for my defense, stopping the run or stopping the pass, I'm going to take stopping the pass because that's going to, you know, that you can't stop the pass, then you're going to get gashed.
Well,
So
we're going to do a whole thing on the defense because we're going to have to. And this kid's
sure.
going to come up here, up the highway and run around. Luke is Baltimore Luke. He's Luke at WNST.net. We're both very available individuals, especially because we're watching baseball on TV. Dude, I had a Peter Luke. I mean, you and I were going to go for Korean barbecue on Monday afternoon, man. We were going to do it up. We were going to take the train, you know, out of Manhattan, you know, take our little sweaters up at the Bronx and do all that. Instead, it's reach for the refrigerator and get ready for Friday. It's a birthday week for Luke. He's a year older. I'm a year wiser. Come later in this week, but not Budweiser. Uh, the Maryland Lottery is presenting our all of our crab cake tours, and this is the only one I have planned. Is this week, this Friday at Pizza John's in Essex. Come on out, get some pizza. They do have a crab cake there. They have ice cream there. They have everything to wash it down with as well. We'll be there on Friday afternoon. It's all brought to you by our friends at Jiffy Lube Multi Care, the Maryland Lottery, our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions, keeping your water water crystal clear, and doing some great plumbing as well. And a big thanks to our friends at Curio Wellness and Foreign Daughter for helping put on one of the great charity events of the year, Maritime Magic on Friday night. We went, we danced, we ate. We drank, not too much, and it was a beautiful night outside. It was actually like a summer night on a night when we dressed for fall, so it was a little weird. But big thanks to Curio, big thanks to James Bond and everybody at Maritime Magic and Living Classrooms Foundation. Saw so many friends there. Our friends from Fadley's were there. Lots of sponsors and clients and friends, and a great band. Good dancing too. So my thanks to everybody for participating in that. Luke and I are going to come back. We're going to talk defense. Going to talk kicking. Going to talk Lamar. Going to talk. Man, we haven't talked King Henry. We haven't talked King Henry enough because, I was the biggest proponent in bringing King Henry in here. So Luke and I are going to have some sparring on that long before Friday. It's Washington at Baltimore. But before we get to that, we're going to get some more residue of I called it a purple miracle in my column this week. Big win over the Cincinnati Bengals, bearing Cincy in the cellar, someplace they're familiar with. And all my friends that went out there, I recommended they not get the chili on the way out. It's overrated. Back for more. Luke and I are talking football. We're WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore. Positive.